What's up, everyone? Justin Graver and Justin Melo here from the Music City Audible, back with another exclusive YouTube breakdown. And today we're breaking down the Titans position groups and ranking them from 1 to 11, starting with number 11. Before we get into it, I want to remind everyone to please subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on those notifications so that you get an alert every time we post a new video like this one. Give us a thumbs up, like if you enjoy the video. Justin, let's get into it here with your number 11 position group. The offensive line. So you say the offensive line is the weakest unit on this team.
Well, I think it's the biggest unknown, and that's why I felt comfortable ranking it as the worst, right? Like, we don't, Andre Dillard, left tackle, we don't know. Peter Skoronski, left guard, I feel really, really good about him, but we don't know, right? He hasn't played yet. Daniel Brunskill, right guard, we don't know. Aaron Brewer, center, switching positions, we don't fully know. Right tackle, Chris Hubbard, I think there's a bit of concern, right? Like, we just don't know. So until they prove otherwise, until they prove not to be a liability, which they've been over the last few years, and I get it, it's a new look group, but until the Titans prove that they have got this position right and going in the right direction, I'm ranking it as the worst group on the team.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even know who the starting right tackle will be on day one. Mike Vrabel recently said that Chris Hubbard is the starting right tackle for now, but they're still looking at that spot and competing. Justin Murray could end up winning that job by the time the week one game with the Saints arrives. For now, it is Chris Hubbard, but the fact that we don't even know who the starter is at one position is just goes to your point that this is a total unknown of a group. And I agree. We'll put them at number 11. Moving up to number 10. Grouped together, we have the special teams unit here. Obviously, the Titans just trade for Nick Folk, so that will bolster them at least a little bit in stability. But at 38 years old, coming off, kind of a shaky end to last season, can't feel too strongly about it. And that says nothing about the coverage units, which Nick Folk will presumably be handling kickoff duties. We don't know that for sure yet, but only 3 touchbacks in all of last year, I think. How is the coverage unit going to hold up if he's not booting the ball through the back of the end zone?
Well, I factor that into my ranking here at number 10 because if they're not kicking many touchbacks and teams decide to return against them, I worry that this could be a pretty lackluster unit overall. It typically hasn't been good under special teams coordinator Craig Aukerman. And there's questions at kick returner and punt returner, right? We don't know how good those guys are going to be. Presumably, a UDFA Kieris Jackson returning kicks and punts for them. So we'll see. But look, this group has a chance to improve my ranking because I struggle with it because, hey, Morgan Cox is the best long snapper in football. Ryan Stonehouse, one of the best punters in football. So I struggled with this, but the way they've, fumbled this kicker position for so long, the way I don't really trust the kickoff and punt coverage teams, ranking it pretty low for now. It's a bit of a to be dated. Hopefully they improve.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there. It's just, again, a lot of unknowns there, and we'll see if they can prove you wrong. But moving on up to the number 9 position group here, which this one surprised me a little bit looking at your rankings. The tight ends, Chig Okonkwo, Trevon Wesco, and Josh Wiley. Don't expect to see a lot of Josh Wiley, at least early in the season, if any of Josh Wiley, so it's going to be a lot of Okonkwo and Wesco handling most of the snaps. Tell me why you have them all the way down at 9.
Well, the reason I went 9 is, and I guess you could say this about other players and positions on the roster, but it especially rings true for me with this position group. They're screwed if Chig Okonkwo gets hurt, right? Like if they got to play any of these other guys as a starter, if it's Trayvon Wesco and Josh Wiley in 2 tight end sets, it's going to go from, good to bad real fast. And I expect Chig to have a great year, despite the, he struggled with drops throughout the preseason. But I factor that in. I'm not sure that they've got great depth, the second and third spots. And then on top of it, I thought they'd go a little heavier here. They only went with 3. They didn't keep Thomas Udokoya. They didn't keep Kevin Rader. Not that that would have made a drastic difference in my overall rankings, but combining the fact that they went light and I only really like the number 1 guy, I've got some questions here for sure.
Yeah, and Chig dealt with a little hip contusion that kept him out of practice for a couple days, but he was back on the field on Monday. Looks like he'll be all speed ahead, full speed ahead, all systems go. Looks like he'll be all systems go come week 1 matchup with the Saints. Let's move on up to the number 8 position group here. Again, a lot of unproven guys here and a very top-heavy group. The wide receivers already dealing with some injuries, but surprising a lot of people by keeping 7 at this position on Tuesday. Why do you have wide receivers at 8?
Well, again, this is a group that has a chance to be way better than where I rank them, and I hope that they are. But until I see it from Treylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins, until they form that 1-2 tandem that we're hoping they do, I'm skeptical. And I'm going to sound like a bit of a Debbie Downer, but we know what the Titans' history is with, trading for aging receivers coming off injuries. I think Hopkins looked like a different dude from Julio Jones and Robert Woods throughout the summer. I am not denying that or disagreeing, but I need to see it. I need to see it in live action in an NFL game. I need to see him stay healthy. I need to see that he still has the pop and juice necessary to be the effective number one receiver. And I need Treylon Burks to stay healthy. If you listen to our show, the Music City Audible, I've been saying that for months now. I'm super high on him, but you go back to the injuries he had last year. He's just coming off a knee injury. Got back to practice a little earlier than we expected, but is that going to limit his effectiveness? Is that going to mean he's a candidate to re-aggravate the injury? I'm worried. And then you got Kyle Phillips, who's already hurt and is probably going to miss at least 3-4 games. I need this group to prove it, man, because all of a sudden, just like last year, you don't want it to be, but you're starting Nick Westbrook-Akine and Chris Moore, and you're calling up guys from the practice squad. And this was a shit show last year, in all honesty, right? With the injuries and stuff they dealt with. So I got to see those two sophomores stay healthy. I got to see Hopkins stay healthy after an injury last year and being suspended and now turning, 31 years old. I've got high hopes for this group. I hope this is a top 3 position group, and it can be, and it will be if Hopkins and Burks live up to their potential and stay healthy. But if they don't do that, this will be among the worst position groups on the team.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, the injury concerns are real. The potential is also very real. So hopefully they can live up to it, because I think that the entire Titans offense this season, the output that we see from that group is going to be mostly dependent, A, on the offensive line, who's your worst position group, and B, on the wide receivers, who are, just above the tight ends here. Let's move on up to number 7, the cornerback room. This one also surprised me because, I like the Titans' top 3 corners here. They do have, they're lacking in depth if something were to happen to Christian Fulton, who has been injured, basically every year of his career. So maybe you should start to plan for that possibility of him missing a few weeks during the year, but it is a contract year, so hopefully he can have a ball out and go get himself paid. But yeah, cornerback at number 7.
Well, this is similar to the receivers, right? I like what they have at the top if they all stay healthy. I like Christian Fulton a lot. I like Roger McCreary. I like Sean Murphy-Bunting. But keep in mind, this was a 30th ranked pass defense last year in the NFL, right? These corners gave up a fair amount. And it was because Fulton missed a lot of time and they didn't have the depth to withstand that. And I think it's the same thing this year. If they're playing Trey Avery, if they're playing Anthony Kendall with any regularity, then opposing quarterbacks, opposing passing offenses are going to go after them. And Sean Murphy-Bunting's a great addition. Hopefully he helps. And hopefully Roger McCreary takes a step forward in year 2. But let's not forget, I thought McCreary played great last year based on how much of a load they asked him to carry, right? He played nickel, he played boundary, he played like 1,000 snaps. He played more snaps than anyone in the NFL, I think.
Yeah.
But he gave up some things too, if we're being honest, right? Like he wasn't perfect, right? At times teams attacked him and he gave up some completions. So I like the overall makeup of this group. I worry about the depth. I worry about the injuries. That's why I didn't rank them higher.
Yeah, I know, it's fair. Let's move on to number 6 here, the inside linebacker position group, where we had a big surprise on cutdown day, Otis Reese making the roster over last year's 6th-round pick Chance Campbell. But you really like Azeez Al-Shaair as he steps into a new starting role, a bigger role, a guy that would have started on the 49ers defense and played a lot of starting snaps due to injury over the last couple of years. Now steps in as a full-time starter and basically the leader of the Titans linebacking group and kind of the Titans defense, aside from, Jeffrey Simmons and Kevin Byard. But in between those two guys, Al-Shaair will be the leader, and Jack Gibbons starting next to him, a former UDFA, which was kind of interesting, beating out former 3rd-round pick Monty Rice. But I do think there's a lot to like about this group, so I don't hate that you have them all the way up at 6.
Yeah, I've got them high up for that reason. I think Azeez Al-Shaair is going to be phenomenal. I've got some questions about the starter next to him. Is Jack Gibbons athletic enough to play a 3-down role? Where does Monty Rice factor in? Does someone end up surprised? Does Luke Gifford end up taking snaps away from both of them? Does Gifford play in pass coverage? When I interviewed Gifford for Broadway Sports a couple months ago, he goes, I really feel comfortable playing in coverage. That's where I've played the majority of my career. So don't rule out him coming in and playing a role. Ultimately, there are a few questions here for sure, but I would be surprised if the Titans didn't get really good play from their linebackers. They got pretty good play from this group last year, even though they had a bunch of injuries. Remember, they signed guys off the street, like Dylan Cole played decent football at times. Joe Schobert was a veteran, came in, played good football at times. So I think overall this is a better group than it was last year, and I think they'll be very productive.
I think it's better, and they have more depth this year, so I agree with you. And when you have the Titans' defensive line playing in front of you, that makes that inside linebacker job a bit easier, at least in run defense. Let's move on up here to number 5 position group, the safeties, where you obviously love your starters in Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker. You don't feel as great about the depth. Elijah Molden switching positions to become a full-time safety this year. Mike Brown and UDFA Matthew Jackson rounding out the group. To have them all the way at 5 means that you must feel really confident in Byard and Hooker at the top.
Well, they're one of the best pairings in all of football at the safety position, right? That's why I have them up this high. If I felt as good, for example, about, Christian Fulton and McCurry and Murphy Bunting, it would be the same thing. But overall, you should feel better about Kevin Byard and Monty Hooker. They're two outstanding players. And obviously, Hooker has to prove he can stay healthy, because there's some questions about depth here. How much traditional safety does Elijah Molden play? How much can Mike Brown give them? Matthew Jackson, a really surprising inclusion on this initial 53-man roster. But ultimately, I expect Byard and Hooker to be the workhorses. They're two phenomenal players. They deserve to be ranked this high.
Yeah, I agree. This is where, having superstar power raises the whole position group here, and that's what you get with Byard and Hooker, who, in my opinion, are the best safety duo in all of football. We'll move on up now to the number 4 position group here. I'm surprised you have them this high, to be quite honest, and that is the quarterbacks. You love what you get with Ryan Tannehill. You know what you're going to get as long as the offensive line protects well enough and the weapons around him stay healthy. You could have a top 5 quarterback season. If the offensive line doesn't protect well enough and he gets injured again, or he's playing through injury, or the receivers get hurt, then you could have a repeat of 2022. But overall, you have to be pretty confident in what Ryan Tannehill can do, having led the Titans to the playoffs in 3 of 4 seasons as the starter. It's the backups that are, huge question marks. Malik Willis has taken a big step forward this year, but still, has a lot of room to grow. Will Levis, we only got to see him in 1 preseason game because of injury. So explain to me why you have quarterbacks all the way up at 4.
Yeah, I figured this might be the most controversial of them all. I took a positive spin here. I think when you look around the league, there are a lot of teams that are not happy with their backup situation in the league. And that's standard. There aren't 32 good quarterbacks in the NFL, right? We see that every year. So there certainly aren't 64. So when I look at the Tennessee Titans, I think they're very fortunate to have Malik Willis and Will Levis, 2 guys that potentially project as their starting quarterback. Right, one of them certainly you feel like might be their starting quarterback. So in 2024 and beyond. So I think that puts a positive spin on it. And then I do think Ryan Tannehill is a good starting quarterback. I don't think he doesn't transcend the talent around him. We know what his limitations are, and we know things kind of got to go right around him. But if you remember what it was like when they got everything right around him, he was like a borderline top 10 NFL quarterback. And to this day,
top 3 statistically. Like if you just look at passer rating, yards per attempt, EPA per play, completion percentage over expectation.
I still think, even though the shine has worn off a little based on the last year and a half, I still think, he's a top 16 starting quarterback in the NFL. If he's not 16, he's 17, 18. And after that, you're ludicrous if you think he's 19 or worse. So certainly somewhere between that 15 to 18 range right now. So I factor that in. I look at the 2 young quarterbacks. You're excited about their future and their prospects. And I like what they have at quarterback. I really do.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with where the Titans are at quarterback heading into this season. Let's move on now to the number 3 position group here, and this is where we start to get into the real strengths of this team. So sorting out these top 3 probably wasn't easy for you, but at number 3, you have the edge group with Harold Landry and Arden Key. Arden Key dealing with a minor injury. You hope he's ready for week 1. Rashad Weaver, who had a great preseason, and Caleb Murphy, who had the best preseason of any edge in the NFL, piling up 4 sacks to lead all players. So yeah, you got to like what they have in the edge group, even if it's a lighter number. And you could factor in Danico Autry here as well, even though he's, technically on the defensive line, he's going to play some at edge too.
Well, exactly. I think when this group is healthy, they're going to be tremendous, right? Harold Landry looked really good in that 3rd and final preseason game. Doesn't look like a guy that tore his ACL. Arden Key was unblockable throughout the entire preseason. You factor in Danico Autry getting some snaps here. Rashad Weaver's a very quality number 3 or 4 edge rusher, depending on how you look at Autry. This is a really, really good group. They're going to get after quarterbacks all fall throughout the entire season. They're going to put quarterbacks on the ground. Caleb Murphy, 4 sacks in the preseason. A huge success story coming out of D2 Ferris State football. I love this group, and I have no regrets about putting them number 3. I wouldn't put them higher. I wouldn't put them lower. I can't wait to see them when they're healthy, because Harold Landry, Arden Key, Danico Autry, oh boy, they're going to get after quarterbacks all year long.
And they're going to do so in tandem with your number 2 position group here, the defensive line. Jeffrey Simmons, you put Danico Autry here, Tier Tart, and then making up the end of that group, Jaden Peavy and Naquan Jones. I mean, we saw Tier Tart just absolutely explode in the preseason game against Minnesota. We know what Jeffrey Simmons can do. We know what Danico Autry can do. This team with Harold Landry healthy, these 2 groups working in tandem. The last time they were all on the field together, they put up 9 sacks in the playoff game against the Bengals that they lost. But 9 sacks in a game, pretty damn impressive. So the Tennessee Tickle Monsters, as we call them, are your number 2 position group here.
Well, Jeffrey Simmons is the best football player on the Tennessee Titans, and I factored that into my evaluation. Dina Kawatre, you know what's the best thing I can say about Dina Kawatre? And this came to mind when I was watching him just dominate the New England Patriots in that third and final preseason game. I don't even know why he played, but I don't know if there's another player in football that makes football look as easy as Dina Kawatre does. Like watching Dina Kawatre, I'm like, man, maybe I can get out there and do that as I stretch from my couch. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's so easy. Is he ever going to get old? Like, he's in a contract year right now. He just turned 33 years old. Last year, people were talking about, well, they might cut him as an aging guy going into the last year of his deal. Like, remember when they cut guys? They'd rather cut a guy a year too early than a year too late. No, Dina Kawatre is still playing unbelievable football. He looked so, I know there was backups in that game, but just the way he was moving, I'm like, yep, Dina Kawatre has not lost a step. He does not look a year older. Like, are they going to have to consider re-signing this guy next summer? Like, no, you would never consider re-signing a 34-year-old pass rusher, but my God, I have a feeling he's going to have another great year. Exceptional. And I've spoken to his agent many, many times. And he always laughed. We always have a good conversation. We chuckle because he goes, Dina Kawatre is an old school football guy. If he didn't have to do any media, he wouldn't. And it always makes me laugh because he denied my interview request. And it's like, yeah, you know why? Dina Kawatre just wants to show up and play football. He doesn't give a shit about anything else. And he's just so damn good at it. Like, I feel like he doesn't even have to lift weights. He's one of the, he's just an unbelievable football player, man. So that's part of the reason I got them up at number 2. Let me end my tangent here. Pierre Tart looks like a much better football player, better pass rusher this year. Can't wait to see what he gives them in a contract year. Jaden Peavy had a great summer. Naquan Jones entering his 3rd year with the team. This group is both top heavy, and I like the depth at the back end. No doubt the second best position group on the Titans.
Yep, and if you're using the process of elimination, then you already know what the number 1 position group is, headlined by the king himself. This is the running back group, adding Tajay Spears in the 3rd round of this year's draft. Julius Chestnut led the team in scrimmage yards throughout the preseason. And obviously Derrick Henry, still one of, if not the best running back in football, will take the field for his age 30 season. And they are the strongest position group on the Titans, according to you.
I think there's no question, and I think you're out of your mind if you disagree with this. Anybody, if you disagree, leave a comment. Tell me why. I'll jump in the comments and make fun of you and tell you why you're wrong, because Derrick Henry's still a phenomenal player, one of the best running backs in the NFL. Tajay Spears looks like a dynamic change of pace guy. Finally, what they've been looking for to complement Derrick Henry. And then how about Julius Chestnut as your number 3, who looked really good throughout the preseason? Like, it wouldn't surprise me, in all honesty, if they play Henry a little bit less this year because they want to get Spears on the field. They want to preserve Henry, but it's worth it because you can get Spears on the field. You can even get Chestnut on the field on occasion. This is a really, really good position group, to the point where you never want Derrick Henry to go down, ever, with injury. I knock on wood as I say it. But for the first time, I think, throughout his stint with the Titans, if he went down, you wonder if they'd be able to sort of maintain some of that production with a tandem of Tajay Spears and Julius Chestnut. And I know a lot of people will say they did that with Freeman a few years ago, but I did not. Foreman, sorry, a few years ago. I didn't think they were as good as people thought they were when they didn't have Henry down that stretch. So I feel differently. This is just top to bottom, a terrific position group. Henry, Spears, Chestnut, no doubt about it, the best position group on the Titans.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that, this is going to be a big year for them. The offensive line, as much as they may struggle in pass protection, they were really moving bodies around in the run game throughout the preseason. I think that will continue this year. I think Henry's in for another big year. And I think the Titans have a great chance to win the AFC South as long as he stays healthy. And that's the story of football. Everyone's got to stay healthy. But that does it. We ranked the Titans position groups 1 to 11. Let us know if you agree or disagree with any of our rankings in the comments below. And if you want this content in written form, it is available now, BroadwaySportsMedia.com, the most recent article by Justin Melo. So go check that out. All right, that's it for this video. We'll be back soon next week, I guess, to start prepping for week 1. And go back in the feed if you missed our other videos. We did a full reaction to the initial 53-man roster, and we had some Titans headlines that may have slipped through the cracks with cut day being this week. So go check those out if you missed them. All right, that's it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, the Music City Audible. Again, we'll be back soon. And until then, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.